In 2004, The Incredibles quickly made themselves a fan favorite in the Pixar universe, and its recent sequel was just as popular. Created by Brad Bird, the story started with an idea inspired by Ayn Rand's Atlas Shrugged. If everyone is taught to hide what makes them special, then ultimately no one is able to rise above the masses and make a difference. This family of superheroes has made a lasting impression on the Disney Pixar universe. Their world is made up of supers and villains, but there's also a lot of gray area. In a universe where people are scolded for having powers, and there's a special task force to hide good deeds, where do these characters fall on the morality scale? I'm Kyle with WickedBinge, and this is Good to Evil: The Incredibles.
No kicks!
As usual, we'll be starting with the most good, and this time we're going with the babysitter, Carrie. Only seen in the first movie, she's a teenage girl who's great at childcare, out to try and make a name for herself. She's always looking to not just get her pay, but help her kids advance in their time with her. She shows that she's really trying to make a career from babysitting, taking up all the classes she can for first aid and child development. Sure, her phone calls can go on way too long, with her fixation on making sure the parents are informed on what she's doing, but how many other teenagers are willing to put in that level of effort? Carrie is certainly a role model for many because of her sunny optimism and passion. Our second most righteous character is the one and only Elastigirl. This supermom has proven that her family and their safety is her top priority. In the first film alone, she saves her children from a plane crash, goes to save her husband, and then helps stop a giant robot. You might say that she deserves to be a bit lower due to her punching out Mirage, but considering she feared Bob was cheating on her, it makes sense why she interpreted the scene the way she did. And how can we not see her as one of the most good characters after the second film? Putting her family before her fear to come out of retirement is a wondrous thing.
This is Elastigirl. I'm in.
Sure, she was breaking the law, but it was either have her family thrive while only she was at risk, or get kicked out of the motel and be homeless, since it wasn't likely for Bob to find another job in 2 weeks. And we can't forget the fact that even though Evelyn tried to kill her, Helen made sure to save the dreaded screenslaver, proving that she's above petty vengeance. We totally get why Winston is such a fanboy and wanted her to be the face of the superhero movement. Third on our list is the interdimensional fangirl, Void, or Karen if you prefer. Much like the ambassador, she's way too trusting. We can cut her some slack, seeing as she states herself that she hid her abilities for years out of shame, only coming out when she found out her longtime idol was the face of the new movement.
I felt like an outcast. Before.
When released from Screenslaver's control, she's given a chance to redeem herself by helping our beloved Elastigirl finish her mission and get to Evelyn as the woman is trying to escape. And who can't help but find it endearing when she sticks around to gush with Violet about how talented a fighter she was. Just too pure. Next up is the Master of Cool, Frozone. Known by Lucius to his friends and family, he's the even-headed super of the movies. He gets some grief for knowing when to disappear so he doesn't get caught, but to his credit, he does try to get Bob to do the same.
Don't be mad because I know when to leave a party.
He always tends to show up just when he's needed, whether it be saving a train from plummeting to the ground or keeping the kids from being kidnapped. He's also shown to be a great support system to Bob and Helen, always there to offer his home when needed.
Door's always open.
Mr. Incredible himself is next. Bob is a great dad and husband without a doubt. He does what he can and sticks to his guns when he believes something to his core.
Heavyweight problems need heavyweight solutions.
However, those strong convictions can lead to him being in trouble more often than not. Right when we see his courage in the first movie, it's obvious that he has great intentions. Whether it's bad luck or poor timing, it never seems to translate the way he means it to. Saving a jumper only led to him being sued for hurting the man's neck. Training to help fight robots made Helen paranoid that he was cheating. Trying to get Violet in the same room as Tony to work things out made him out to be an embarrassing dad. We would love to rank him higher, but his stubborn nature always gets in the way. He's a great man, but he needs to be better at admitting when he's in over his head. Jack, the jack-of-all-trades infant, is up next on our list. Being so young, he doesn't really do anything for the sake of being bad. Much of what he does is mimic what he thinks heroes are meant to do, which is fighting bad guys. Sure, he tries to take out a raccoon, but it makes sense that he sees it as a robber, seeing as the animal was stealing the family's trash. Being a baby, he's invested in instant gratification, only becoming visible when given the promise of cookies.
Nom nom, nom nom, cookie, cookie.
He proves during the showdown of the second movie that he has an understanding of good and bad, and also comprehends much of what is happening around him, even with his limited mobility and almost no vocabulary, which is the only reason he isn't higher on our list. It makes you wonder how much he did just because he could get away with it. Next of the bar children is Violet. Like many teenage girls, she's a bit of an emotional wreck. She's determined to prove herself and is confident when she can freely use her powers, but tends to lash out at others when she's forced to hide who she is. It's understandable that she wants to be open and be seen as strong. When her mother begins working for Winston, there is an undertone of resentment since her mother is doing the very thing she always told Violet not to do.
But I thought superheroes were still illegal.
The oldest bar child is also seen as sympathetic once it sinks in how much her father has been doing, taking up some work to help so he can rest.
I thought it was best to just let you sleep.
She's not a perfect kid, but no teenager is, but she's done too much good to rank her any lower. Dash is next on our list. A formidable foe and eager competitor, he's nothing but go go go. Helen had it on the money when she said that he's a show-off, and that's a dent in his character.
You are an incredibly competitive boy, and a bit of a show-off.
But to be fair, we would all likely do the same. While he's impatient and does unintentionally destroy most of what he comes into contact with, he also saves old ladies from flying cars, even straightening their glasses. And he makes sure that his brother and sister are safe. Reckless, sure, but you can't deny that he's an overwhelmingly good character. Who can we have next but the queen of fashion and proclaimed trendsetter of the hero world, but Edna Mode? A vain woman, but given the success of her career, it's hard to blame her.
My God, you've gotten fat. Come in, come.
She may be drastic in her methods of comforting her favorite family, but sometimes you need to get drastic. She refuses to put capes onto costumes for safety reasons, clearly regretting how they hurt people in the past. There's been plenty online expressing how deep her regret really goes, suggesting she may have fallen into a deep depression after one of her capes made a young girl lose her life.
No kicks.
Edna has a brazen personality, but her loyalty does run deep. Next, we have the well-known Honey. Though she has few lines in the movies, and she's never seen, she's a memorable character. Honey isn't declared as a super, but she does prove she adores Frozone and the Incredible Family. She places herself as the quote-unquote greatest good Frozone will ever get, which shows how prideful she is. But then again, who are we to argue?
I'm the greatest good you are ever gonna get.
Next is the billionaire fanboy, Winston. The moment we meet him, he's full of energy and passion, slamming his hand on the top of a limo to usher his driver to follow Frozone. The people who are seen working with him or for him are clearly happy to do so.
Hey, it's working!
It's hard to hate a guy who's always so open. Unlike a lot of wealthy guys in movies that are hiring muscle, he actually takes Elastigirl's concerns to heart. The fact that he hired her first at all shows he wants not only a good public response, but wants to place public safety first.
We agree to undo a bad decision.
A businessman and a good guy at heart. Too bad he likely bails his sister out of jail. Next up is Tony. Though he's portrayed as perfect from Violet's perspective, he's only a high school boy and therefore does lack the finesse most girls daydream about. He does have a warped idea on supers, only knowing that they're illegal, which causes him to fear Violet when seeing her in her costume. We can recognize that he's gotten mixed up in something he didn't mean to. Plus, it says a lot that despite being afraid when first finding out about Violet's secret, he still wanted to date her and try to have a relationship, stating that he knows it isn't her fault.
It's not her fault superheroes are illegal.
He tries hard to be a good person, and that's more than we can say for a lot of kids his age. Up next is Dicker, the task force member in charge of covering up Bob's messes. His job is shady, sure, but he does his best.
You want out of the hole? First, you gotta put down the shovel.
Tampering with memories, buying people out, and falsifying paperwork isn't necessarily noble work, but neither is using fear of heroes to suppress part of the population. He doesn't have powers, but he does believe in the forces of good and hangs in right until the task force is shut down.
The program's been shut down.
Next is the ambassador. As far as leaders go, we haven't seen any corruption about her. She's a fan of Elastigirl, which causes her to let her guard down, but we can't really blame her.
I am glad to see you back.
Her worst fault is that she's too trusting after being saved once already. It puts her and her staff at risk to Screenslaver's plans. But then again, most would feel perfectly safe on a ship full of people with powers claiming to be on their side. Dash's paranoid teacher, Bernie Kropp, is next. His only redeemable trait is that he's harmless even if he is a bit of a loon. He's not wrong about Dash being the one tormenting him, but setting up a camera just to catch someone putting tracks on your chair is obsessive.
Coincidence? I think not!
If he really wanted to, he could have been helpful to some villains. Thankfully, he stopped at just being a very vocal teacher. We would like to place Mirage higher, but she did let a lot of things slide.
Valuing life is not weakness.
Working for a villain and assisting with the death of countless supers is not a very forgivable thing. She does eventually see the fault in her ways and helps the Incredibles, but that does little to make up for her past deeds. She was too scared to step in, even hearing that children were about to die at Syndrome's hands, and it was heavily implied that she was falling for Bob. Had Helen not shown up at that moment, it's likely she may have been able to add homewrecker to her evildoer resume. Next is Gilbert, Bob's boss at the insurance agency. A spiteful little man, he really showcases the worst of the society that the supers once protected. He shows no sympathy, not only for those being mugged on the street, but also for the people his company is meant to help.
I don't want to know about their coverage, Bob! Don't tell me about their coverage!
He's only in it for the almighty dollar, and we couldn't be happier that he gets sent through several walls for it. What better spot on the list than here to place Underminer? He's not the most wicked villain, but he is a bad guy without a doubt. He causes a lot of collateral damage, steals hundreds of thousands of dollars, almost blows up a family, and costs families their homes, jobs, and vehicles. Honestly, he was way too much trouble, and it's a shame that he wound up getting away. But our second most evil character is the one and only Syndrome. Formerly Buddy, Mr. Incredible's #1 fan, he turned evil after being shoved to the side one too many times.
After all, I am your biggest fan.
He could have been a great force for good, and it's obvious he didn't give up entirely on that dream. He justified killing off hundreds of heroes and building machines of chaos, saying all heroes were in it for the glory. I suppose part of his philosophy may be right, and it is easy to feel bad for him given his origin story. Remember kids, never meet your idols or you'll grow to hate them and become evil, apparently. This guy is a classic tale of petty revenge consuming someone to the most extreme extent, to the point in which he's willing to kill, kidnap, and do all types of evil to achieve it. Good thing he wore a cape. And our gold medal for most evil character in The Incredibles is Screenslaver Evelyn. Like Syndrome, she blamed heroes for what she became.
Superheroes keep us weak.
Her views on people being weak and depending on supers too much does have a grain of truth to it, which is really what makes her such a great villain.
Why would you count on me? Because I built you a bike?
She's resourceful, intelligent, and it's frightening to see how well she masks her intentions. She has a level of contempt for her younger brother, but does care for him to some extent. Otherwise, why try to save him from a crashing ship? She'll likely be busted out of jail due to her family and their money. But while she may escape the long arm of the law, she can't escape Elastigirl's grasp. But what do you think? Who are the most good and evil characters in The Incredibles? Make sure to binge our full Good to Evil playlist, where we break down the morality of the characters from your favorite movies, shows, and cartoons. We did the whole Toy Story universe, so check it out. But most importantly, stay wicked.